Concept of algorithm. In the computer world, there are voluminous data which computers deal with. Hence, there must be instructions that will tell them on what to do to produce results. And these instructions are called algorithms. Here's how to write an algorithm. Number 1, define the inputs. Inputs are data to be processed. Number 2, define the variables. Variables are used to store information to be referenced and manipulated. Number 3, outline the operations. Operations are actions or processes to be carried out to accomplish a task. Number 4, output the results. Output is the data generated after the series of operations. Flowchart. In computer programming, it is helpful to organize how you solve a problem before writing it in codes. This can be done using either algorithms, which was explained in the previous lessons, or using flowcharts. Here are some of the flowchart symbols. Number 1, terminal. It indicates the start or end of a flowchart. Number 2, preparation. It is used to prepare or initialize variables. Number 3, input or output. It is used to take input from or display output on. Number 4, process. It represents arithmetic instruction or any data manipulation. Number 5, decision. It represents a decision point such as yes or no or true or false. Number 6, on-page connector. It is used to connect a remote flowchart portion on the same page. Number 7, off-page connector. It is used to connect a remote flowchart. And lastly, flow lines. It indicates the flow of control. Programming language. Programming language is a formal language comprising of set of grammatical rules to instruct a computer in performing a task. There are different types of programming languages as follows. Number 1 is the low-level programming languages. There are languages that have little or no abstraction of programming concepts and are very close to machine instructions. Examples of these are machine codes and assembly language. And number 2 is the high-level programming languages. There are languages that have very high abstraction of programming concepts and are written in a form that is close to human language. Examples of these are Java, Visual Basic, Python, and others. Overview of C++. C++ programming language is said to be a combination of high-level and low-level languages, hence considered the middle-level language. It was created by Bjørn Stroustrup, a Danish computer scientist at Bell Telephone Laboratories, known as Nokia Bell Labs. In Murray Hill, New Jersey, originally C++ was known as C with classes, which meant to superset the C programming language. Stroustrup's goal was to add object-oriented programming in C language. It was in 1983 where C with classes was changed to C++, where ++ roughly means 1 higher than C. To date, C++ is still one of the most popular programming languages according to the Job Index latest study of 2019. Uses of C++. C++ is one of the primary choices in developing several applications. C++ is used for developing the following. Number 1, operating systems. Operating systems such as Microsoft and few parts of the Apple operating system are developed using C++. Number 2, browsers. Browsers such as Google Chrome and Mozilla Firefox, particularly their rendering engines, are developed using C++ simply because of the speed it offers. Libraries. High-level libraries are also developed using C++. For machine learning libraries such as TensorFlow, C++ is particularly used in the back-end because of its speed. Number 4, graphics. In graphics applications, fast rendering is a requirement which makes C++ the best choice. Specifically, C++ is used in the back-end of software that utilizes computer vision, digital image processing, and high-end graphical processing. Number 5, databases. Database software or open source database software such as MySQL and Postgres are written in C++. These two popular databases are used in YouTube, Quora, etc. Number 6 is the embedded systems. Different embedded systems such as smartwatches are written in C++. The fact that C++ is close to machine codes compared to high-level languages. Number 7, compilers. Most of the compilers, such as the compilers of C, and Java, are also written in C++. Number 8, media access. C++ is also used for creating a media player, managing video files and audio files such as Winamp Media Player. Number 9, cloud or distributed systems. Cloud storage systems and other distributed systems also use C++ because it is compatible with several machines. Number 10, telephone switches. C++ is also widely used in programming telephone switches and routers. Integrated development environment for C++. An integrated development environment is a software application that provides comprehensive facilities to programmers for software development. To help you get started with C++ programming, follow the steps below. You can also use CXXDroid to program in C++ using your mobile phones. And here's how to install it. Coding in CXXDroid. Number 1. Type the sample code below. Number 2. Click the play button to view the output. This should display the output as shown below. Basic elements of C++. This lesson introduces the C++ program structure to get you started in writing simple C++ programs. Variables, literals, and data types which you will use in creating C++. Programs will be also introduced. The sample program given below presents the basic structure and syntax of a C++ program. Line 1. When the hash is signed, this means it is a preprocessing directive that is interpreted before the compilation of the program begins. Line 2. The line using namespace std tells the compiler to use the std namespace. The count is part of the standard library, and all the elements in the standard C++ library are declared within what is called a namespace, the namespace std. When the line is used, you don't need to use std anymore every time you use count, just like the statement below. Line 3. White space is the term used to describe blanks, tabs, new line characters, and comments. White space in C++ is totally ignored by the compiler. For this reason, it does not matter where you put a statement in a line. Hence, the given program is the same as. Line 4. The line int main is the special function in all C++ programs where execution begins. Line 5 and 8. The curly brackets determine the start and end of a block. A block in C++ is a set of logically connected statements. Line 6. This line is a single line comment available in C++, which is ignored by the compiler. Single line comments begin with / and stop at the end of the line. You can use them to include short explanations or observations concerning your program. For multiple line comments, / and asterisks are used like the example below. Line 7. This line is a C++ statement. A statement consists of expressions, functions, operators, or symbols that produce effect. In the given statement, count means character output, a function in C++ that displays the message within the double quotation marks on the screen. Variables. Variables are reserved memory locations for storing values. Each variable needs a name that identifies it and distinguishes it from the others. This is termed as identifier. Constant in literals. Constants are fixed values that the program may not alter. These fixed values are called literals. Constants are just like regular variables except that their values cannot be modified after their definition. Here's a list of different literals in C++ programming. A. Integer. A integer is a numeric literal which can be a decimal, octal, or hexadecimal constant in C++ programming. Octal starts with a 0 and hexadecimal starts with a 0x, like the example below. B. Floating point literals. A floating point is a numeric literal that has either a fractional form or an exponent form, like the example below. C. Characters. A character literal is created by enclosing a single character inside single quotation marks, like the example shown below. Escape sequences. Escape sequences are characters that cannot be typed or has a special meaning in C++ programming, like the examples below. E. String literals. String literals are sequence of characters enclosed in double quote marks, like the example shown below. Variable and constant declarations. To use variables in the C++ program, you have to declare them by following the syntax below. The declaration of a variable is always followed by a semicolon. Variables that are declared inside the function or block are local variables. They can be used only by statements within that function or block of code. On the other hand, global variables are defined outside of all the functions, usually before the main function. They are available for use throughout the entire program after its declaration. For constants, they are declared using any of the following. Here are sample programs that apply the use of variable and constants using the C++ program structure. Basic elements of C++. This lesson introduces how to take inputs from the user and how to display output to the user. Operators in C++ will also be presented. Basic input and output statements in C++. In C++, input and output are performed in streams, or what we call sequence of bytes. It is called input stream if the flow of bytes is from the device to the main memory, whereas the output stream if the flow of bytes is from the main memory to the device. To perform the basic input and output operations, the header file used is iOS stream. For the standard output, count is used together with the insertion operator, like the example shown below. For the standard input, sin is used together with the extraction operator, like the example below. The statement above allows the user to enter an input. The input will only be transmitted to the program when the enter key is pressed. If and if else statements. Basically, the flow of the program is sequential, which means that the first statement is executed followed by the next, and so on. However, the flow can be controlled using selection and repetition control structures. A. The if statement. The if statement is a single selection statement used in C++ to execute a block of statements only when the condition is true. B. The if-else statement. On the other hand, if-else statement is used when there are two conditions, like the example shown below. Selection control statements. This lesson introduces the nested if and if-else statements as well as a switch statement in C++. Specifically, in this section, the use of one if or else if statement inside another if or else if statements will be presented to demonstrate how to select actions to be performed depending on several conditions. Nested if and if-else statements. Nested if and if-else statements are statements that makes use of if or else if statements inside another if or if-else statements. The syntax for the nested if statements is like the one shown below. The inner if will be executed when condition 1 is true, otherwise the inner if will be ignored. The block statements in the inner if will be executed when condition 2 is true, otherwise it will be completely ignored too. B. Switch statement. The switch statement is another selection control statement used in C++. It is used to select one of the block of statements to be executed based from the value of the expression when tested in each case. The syntax is like the one shown below. Repetition control statements. Repetition control statements, otherwise called loop, are statements that allow repeated execution of block of codes until a particular condition is satisfied. For instance, when you display the word 100 times instead of using print statement 100 times, you may use loop, which uses few lines of codes. There are three types of loop statements in C++, namely for loop, while loop, and do while loop. Specifically, for loop is used when you know exactly the number of times you want to loop through a block of code. The flow of execution for loop is shown below. It starts with the initialization of variable which is executed only once. It then goes to the condition where it is evaluated whether or not it is true or false. If the condition is false, the for loop is terminated. If the condition is true, it executes the block of codes. After every execution of block of codes, the increment part of for loop is executed, which updates the loop counter, after which it goes back to the condition part where it is re-evaluated. Now, take a look at another sample code fragment below where for loop is within another for loop. This is called nested for loop. The while loop is another type of loop statement in C++. It is used only when the number of times you want to loop are not exactly known. Take a look at the example below. The do while loop is another type of loop statement in C++. Specifically, do while loop is used if the number of iteration is not fixed. The block of statements is executed at least once in the condition is checked after the block of statements. The flow of execution of do while loop is shown below. It starts with the initialization of variable which is executed only once, which is similar to the for loop, after which it executes the block of statements and then goes to the condition where it is evaluated whether or not it is true or false. If the condition is false, the do while loop is terminated. If the condition is true, it executes the block of statements again. The increment is part of the block of statements which when executed updates the loop counter, after which it goes back to the condition part where it is re-evaluated. Now, take a look at another sample code fragment below where do while loop is within another do while loop. This is called nested do while loop. Functions. A function is a block of statements that perform a specific task which can only be executed when it is called. It is also known as method or a subroutine or a procedure. C++ provides several predefined functions which are part of the standard library functions of C++. Below are some of the predefined functions of C++. User-defined functions. C++ also allows you to create your own functions to perform specific actions beside the predefined functions available in the standard library. This kind of function is called user-defined function. User-defined functions are important when you want to reuse block of statements anytime within the program. Normally, all user-defined functions are declared with the after main function, or else an error will occur. To have a better grasp of functions, let us categorize them into function with no parameters and no return, function with no parameters but return value, function with parameters but no return value, function with parameters and return value. Let's start with the first category. The sample program below demonstrates the use of a function without parameters and return values. In the sample program above, the function named myFunction is defined. It has a void type, hence the function will not return any value. Also, it has no parameter list since the parenthesis beside the function name is empty. The main function is called automatically So lines 11 and 12 are executed. In line 13, the function my function is called, hence in main is suspended. The program control then jumps to my function at line 4. Line 6 is then executed. When my function terminates, main resumes execution where it left off. In this case, line 14 will be executed. The output of the program is like the shown below. Functions with parameters but with no return values. In the previous lesson, sample functions were presented having no parameters and no return values, as well as having no parameters but with return values. This time, let's talk about functions with parameters but no return values. Take a look at the sample program below. The sample program has a function name getName. The getName function has a void type. Hence, the function is expected not to return any value. The parenthesis beside the function name is not empty anymore, which means the function has a parameter which is strong fn. At the line 14, the function getName is invoked and has an argument fname. An argument is a variable whose value is passed on to the parameter. In this example, the input from the user that is stored in fname is passed onto the parameter of function getName, which is fn. With this, fn now has a value equal to the value of fname. Here is another example of a function, this time with more than one parameters but no value. When there are multiple parameters used, the type and order of the arguments and parameters matter. In the example above, the argument which are 100 and 300 are both integers are passed onto the parameters x and y, respectively, which are also both integers. Functions with parameters and return values. In the previous lesson, sample functions were presented having parameters but with no return values. This time, let's talk about functions with parameters and return values. Always remember that both parameters and arguments must have the same data type to avoid errors when using the function category. Take a look at the sample program below. In the given program, the function getName has a string type, which means that it returns a string value. At line 16, the function getName is invoked and has an argument fname. In this example, any input from the user that is stored if name is passed on to the parameter of function getName, which is fn. With this, fn is now equal to the value of fname. In the body of the function getName, a string variable greet is declared. At line 7, the value of fn is concatenated with the string hello and is assigned to variable greet. At line 8, the value of greet is returned. The control goes back to the line 16 where the value of greet is displayed. Here is another example of a function, this time with more than one parameters and with return value. The type and order of the arguments and parameters matter. In the example above, the arguments which are 100 and 300 and are both integers are passed on to the parameters x and y, respectively, which are also both integers. The output of the program is shown below. Recursive functions. Functions is also especially helpful when performing tasks repeatedly. This method is called recursion. To do this using functions, you may have to use recursive functions. Recursive function is a function that calls itself. The sample program has a recursive function which continues when n greater than 1 and returns the computed value. Otherwise, it returns 1. The output of program is shown below.